Starting.
Maybe. And we are online.
Oh, all right.
Has the live stream started?
That's really what I'm concerned about.
Yes. So we are about to start. um, yeah. And I think we don't need like
I know. I think
microphone.
we're intimate enough where.
Yes. And I'm gonna hide it somewhere.
And now we have a nice balance. We have as many audience members as we do panelists. So, you know.
It's really funny.
You sit closer.
No, they have to be in the back. Like
Yeah,
that's how everybody wants to be in the front.
Yeah, and I hope there's more coming in. But before we started, I want to say I have some tea and jasmine tea, and also some tincture from the Tree of Heaven plants. And yeah, I mean, since we are going to talk a little bit about plants, I feel like it might be fun to have some components of the plant in your body, so you can feel like the plant's presence in a way. And while you're doing that, I can kind of give the introduction to this event. So my name is Che, and I'm the organizer of this event and also the moderator for today's talk. And thank you for joining us. And thank you, Çaca and Patte, for being here. And I think tomorrow is Çaca's birthday. So happy birthday. And I'm really excited to hear about your practice and have the conversation. And all of you guys are like very welcome to join the conversation as well. Interrupt us anytime. And I want to first spend a few minutes to introduce you to the whole project. But before that, I want to say that one can simply talk about multi-species and symbiotic relation without talking about the land, the issues around displacement, dispossession, and erasure that we are deeply entangled with. Therefore, it's crucial to acknowledge that the land that we are standing on is a stolen land, and it is the ancestral territory of Massachusetts, Nipmuc, and Wampanoag nations. And the history of dispossession and erasure is something that we are complicit in, and it should be the tone while we are speaking. And as a newcomer to this land, I want to offer my gratitude to the indigenous people for the past, present, and future partaking, and offer my appreciation to the land, the water, and the plants for sustaining us. And today's event is called Interstitial Lives. Today's event is called Rustling Room, Multivalent Web Weaving, and Other World Syllabus. And it's part of a project called Interstitial Life, and it's a series of exhibition, workshops, and lectures like this. And we are primarily thinking about the cross-species relationship with the residents in Boston Chinatown neighborhood and the passersby and our plant neighbors, especially the kind of plant we call them weed that grows in interstitial spaces between building, highway, and fences. And I'm approaching these plants in the context of Chinatown here, which is formed by racialized exclusions, capitalist urbanization, and profound environmental harm. In a 2021 study, I found that among Boston neighborhood, Chinatown experienced the hottest temperature during the day and night in summer, and it's mostly because of the lack of green space and the impervious concrete surfaces, and the only like little green spaces we have in Chinatown are mostly covered by weeds. And to me, they bear witness to the changing environment and also the changing property relations, as most land in Chinatown is taken over by big institutions and infrastructures. And here is a picture of some protesters protesting about workers' rights in Chinatown, and we can see the plants behind the protesters are weeds, and this weeds is called Tree of Heaven. And to me, like these weeds, they trying to like full screen.
Try to full screen it.
Yeah, I think I did it last time. But
Let's see.
oh, where are you going? Sorry about full screen mode. Yeah, like to me, they almost become this like living monuments. They witness and also have the potential of reactivating these self-organized resistance. And while I'm organizing, while I'm thinking about these trees and also organizing my project, and Patte's and Çaca's work came into my mind like over and over time. Yeah, because I think like we will have like really interesting conversation while I'm still a student, and a lot of the conversation is around multi-species collaborations and how to think beyond our human body. And yeah, and so to me, it's really nice to have you guys back with me and talking about your work, and also Çaca's works like really inspires me, and it's always fun to talk with you, have intimate conversation with you. Yeah. And should we start it? And I think we don't need like bio, because everybody knows you guys well.
We all know each other.
So yeah. We'll skip that. Skip the intimidating honors. Okay. Wait. Okay. Slideshow. Beginning. Yeah.
All right. We got it. Okay. Well, thanks y'all for being here, and if there's anybody online watching, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes. There are two watching.
Excellent.
We have 6
Excellent.
people.
Well, I love intimate rooms, and I just feel really honored to be invited to be a part of this, because this is a project that's so close to my heart. And I'm going to read a little bit. This is a little, I know Saka's going to be performing, I'm going to be reading. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I feel like this project is really visionary, using the Tree of Heaven not just as a biological aspect of our everyday lives, but as a vehicle for knowledge, love, and consciousness, drawing us deeper into deeper connection with the biosemitic realm. It's such a pleasure also to be in conversation with Saka. So I'd like to share a project that was developed in response to the idea of plant intelligence. There's much new research into this realm, including the fact that plants make specific sounds when they are injured, that they have communication with one another by using a language of chemical signals. And one of the most profound discoveries for me is that of a vast underground network of fungus that connects trees and other plants, through which they share mutual aid. Trees and plants are able to store carbon and nutrients in this network and share it with others who are in need. So as you can see here, a mycorrhizal network is an underground network found in forests and other plant communities, created by the hypha of mycorrhizal fungi joining with plant roots. And this network connects individual plants together, and mycorrhizal relationships are most commonly mutualistic, with both partners benefiting. So let's see. Here you can see a volunteer tree of paradise that has grown up in my Queen's backyard container garden. It is growing happily along with others who have volunteered to live alongside to share soil and nutrients. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about, whoops, come on, video. You can do it.
Oh,
Oh, no.
oh, wait. There's a way. Cannot be. Oh no.
Oh, here, maybe.
I mean, I have the videos.
Do you have it here?
Yes. And maybe I can show you guys.
Okay.
So this is Patte's video.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
All right. So the artwork I'm going to show you today was inspired by experiences with plants, also in Queens, near my home studio during the 2020. The largest green space was an all-face cemetery, a 19th century graveyard that sits on the original land of the Lenape, who resisted colonization for many years before being forced off the land of slaves, first by the Dutch and then by British colonial settlers. Today, many descendants of the Lenape still consider the New York country their homeland. In its current existence, the graveyard is a sprawling, many-acred, loosely managed, abandoned-feeling space that has inadvertently become an urban sanctuary for native plants, insects, and birds, many from communities that have occupied the space since long before the Lenape, and indeed before humans occupied the land. Some are new inhabitants that have made their way to the cemetery through a variety of means, and there is a marked contrast between the vibrant proliferation of plant and animal life and the silent insistence of the memorials, the oldest of which date back to the founding of the cemetery in the 1800s, and the newest of which mark the recent graves of the many who died during the pandemic. My work came to draw on visual motifs from Christian stories inscribed in old gravestones, and I'm equally influenced by the rich tangle of underground mycorrhizal networks and human bodies that nourish the plants, insects, and spirits of the cemetery. Time here is strange and seems to turn in on itself, with multiple temporalities happening simultaneously. In this setting, I became intrigued by the idea of more than human participatory research, meaning research that makes room for the unexpected agency of non-human actors. While I'm still figuring out exactly how to do this, it has led me to some interesting observations. Here you see mugwort, or you did in my video, in the family Artemisia, growing very densely on an old grave site. Artemisia grows on almost every continent, is a nurse plant, meaning it fixes the soil and helps other species grow. It is medicinal and psychotropic for humans, and a belief in its ability to ward off bad spirits has arisen independently in multiple cultures on every continent where it is found. It also grows prolifically on old graves, almost seeming attracted to them. And based on current research into mycorrhizal networks, Artemisia is quite likely distributing human DNA widely throughout this biosphere. For me, this gives new meaning to the term body territory, a term in which I encountered in Sylvia Federici's book, Reenchanting the World, Feminism and the Politics of the Commons, meaning the land where one's ancestors are buried is commonly held territory and an extension of the human body. It is these types of knowledges that help me understand the entangled nature of this space, the way the human becomes subsumed into a larger biosemitic realm. Biosemiotic meaning knowledge produced outside of language through relationships between organic bodies, living and dead. All right, I felt all of these experiences could contribute meaningfully to my ongoing project called Laboratory for Other Worlds, which seeks to create visual and imaginative links between human collective action and multi-species thriving in the face of climate and ecological peril. Here we see a detail of an early version of Laboratory for Other Worlds installed at the Mattress Factory in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I developed a science fiction narrative video and exhibition that centered around the character of a sentient mushroom. This is a detail of the video set, which was also part of a larger exhibition. And this is an image of the full exhibition installed at the Mattress Factory. This was in 2019, and it closed early in 2020 because of the pandemic. But getting back to my more than human participatory research practices undertaken at All Faith Cemetery, I decided to make devices designed to communicate with plants. I collected various wild seeds from the graveyard that I suspected might contain parts of human DNA and planted them in soil and created objects that I felt might communicate welcome and protection when they sprouted. I also wanted to decipher communication from plants. And also, actually, I want to just point out, in this work, the materials lists are really important. And so this is sticks and artificial flowers from All Faith Cemetery, cement, potting soil, mugwort, sagebrush, and wormwood seeds with human DNA collected at a burial site, stone from its soil displaced by grave diggers, paper mache, spray paint, insulation tape, wood, cardboard, recycled jars, water, and leaves. I also wanted to try to decipher communication from plants, or at least evidence of decision-making and thinking on their part. I'm still figuring this piece out, but my first attempt was to create this plant geometry tracker from salvaged material and food waste. As the leeks grow, the communication device tracks the geometric points laid out by the plant body spatial arrangement, keeping track of where a plant decides to move in space where it grows. So you can see here, let me see, do I have a little? Yes, I do. All right, so this little tip there started here, and then went to here, and then went to here. Thank you, Çaca. And then went to there. And then you can see down here on the right, there's a new one that I had just put in where you could see where you can see where that point has just been added. So that's my attempt at discerning plant communication to us. This is a seedling guardian device, and this was designed to communicate love and care to a new plant. I felt that when the vulnerable seeds sprouted, they would appreciate a little protection from the elements. I also decided that the surfaces of the object that faced the seed should be reflective, sending more light for photosynthesis towards the growing shoots. In this way, I felt I was responding to the plant's aesthetic preference, based on what is nutritious for them, in the same way that humans are drawn to color, probably because we intrinsically know that colorful plant foods are nutritious for us. So while I was engaged in these more than human participatory research practices, I was also making drawings that attempted to, and paintings, these are actually drawings and paintings, that attempted to understand the way I experienced time, place, and the natural world and the social order while waiting out the pandemic in the cemetery. These are deeply connected to the fact that I was experiencing strange time alongside the more than human life of the cemetery. These looping experiences of time and stories told through the birth dates and deaths on tombstones, for me, connected the societal sphere to the natural one. The fact that Donald Trump's parents and grandparents are buried here led to meditations on the ways that nationalism, misogyny, racism, and anti-queer and trans violence are all connected to each other, and to the extractionist mindsets that have caused our current climate and ecological peril. These meditations led me to develop an ongoing series of large-scale maps that depict the land as a living body. And today I'm going to show you 3 4x5 maps painted in oil on unstretched canvas. These psychic corporeal maps were designed to visualize the idea of body territory. The communal burial sites can be thought of as an extension of the human body. These maps are rendered as psychic geography, seeing each place on Earth both as completely unique and equally important, along with its individual configurations of plants, animals, and spirits. This place contains multiple concurrent time frames and spatial realities that flow from one to another. To translate this cosmological space into Christian lexicon, these maps could be read in the same way as Hieronymus Bosch's altarpiece, The Garden of Earthly Delights, as simultaneously representing heaven, earth, and hell. The Earth Tapestry, which is here, depicts all faiths as transitory space. Hybrid creatures, a combination of grassy plants, winged insects, and human skeletons, move through the space both above and below ground. The center of the garden holds a large monument to the dead, as well as to the life that flourishes in the immediate holobiome of the garden. The text reads, We are coming and our name is Legion. And that is a quote by Radcliffe Hall talking about the queer uprising that is to come. The ring of animalistic mountains around the cemetery has a head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a tail, indicating that while the cemetery is a land, it is also a body. This one is heaven. The heaven tapestry map depicts an intertwined multi-species organism in which the below and above ground realms are combined into undifferentiated consciousness. Taking into consideration recent scientific thinking about panpsychism, the idea that consciousness pervades the universe, this work sees the under and above ground realm as suffused with a shared sentience. In this tapestry, we see human remains, tombstones, mycorrhizal networks, roots, stones, land, air, tentacles, hands, and eyes meld into a single body of living tissue surrounded by grassy fur. And then finally, the last slide, the Hell tapestry map is based on mythological images of the European world mountain. The mountain is shown as hovering in the air, named from an enormous pile of feces emanating from the centralized rational individual who sits in the center of the geometrical garden paths. Just as this individual's defecation is creating the world mountain, his breath is creating a cloud of industrial pollution topped by the mushroom cloud of a nuclear explosion. Circled around are the creatures of the world, bleached to white and chained to a monument representing financial and hegemonic world order. Around the outer circle are human remains, indicators of the endgame zero-sum logic of mass consumption. So on that super cheery note, that's the end of my slides. And I really just want to say that I appreciated Che's framing of this as a syllabus, because this learning that I have gone through during the pandemic has led to multiple other exhibitions that are ongoing. There's one up right now at the ICA in Maine, and they all have a pedagogical or learning aspect where I hope to share some of this knowledge, which is a combination of social, cultural, scientific, and spiritual.
Yeah.
Here it goes. Okay. So I'm Hyperion from Patte Yvaire. Some of you know me. Yay! Shout out to my daughter in the background there. Okay. So this piece is called The Further. It's stressed canvas and spray paint. And there was tape involved, so there's a trace of tape engaged here. And it is what you're seeing currently is placed vertically, but like if this were face down, you might consider it to be a bird's eye view of an indigenous city, of a plan for an indigenous city. This particular indigenous city, I suggest, exists in what's called a post-Vatican world. And so that's what my entire work is about crafting the conditions, researching and identifying what paths we can take in order to reach a post-Vatican world. I'm just gonna make sure that it sits pretty well.
Do you want me to hold it?
I think it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Free.
Yeah, people can see it. Yeah.
I'm just gonna grab the tape then. Excuse me, folks. And so one of the ways in which I do this outside of painting is through embroidery, which I didn't bring any pieces right now. And I show folks what the visual looks like and how many different ways it can be approached, meaning that like each of us can make a simple choice to step into what I call a post-Vatican world. The reason why I suggest that there is a post-Vatican world is because the Vatican is a city-state that is responsible for securing and sustaining a type of personhood that we can refer to as Christian personhood, which has infiltrated our thoughts, it has supported white supremacy, and it separates humans from the rest of the world. It separates relationships. So when we're talking about multi-species collaboration or anti-species communication, these are things that are very present and they are available to us, but they are obstructed by Christian personhood, which is sustained by the Vatican. Little did most people know, the Vatican is also the largest landholding entity in the world. So, you know, stepping into a post-Vatican world is like, stepping into a post-Vatican world is also a choice to return the land, right? Free the land. So outside of painting and embroidery, one of the things that I do is I put big installations of tape in this shape on the ground. And then I have people come in, or I invite people into the further. So I realize the space. I realize for a moment this post-Vatican world space, and ask them to come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example of that. It's very small because I don't want to make the whole thing right now. And yeah, we'll just put it right there. Okay, so we'll pull this back. Oh, it's got it. All right. So this is a simple line. I don't know if folks can see it. They can see it right there?
Yes.
See the line? Okay. And what I'm going to say is on this side of the line, the side that Patte and Che Yeh are on, there are no hugs. There are no hugs. If you want a hug, you have to step across the line. Right? You'd like a hug. Would you like a hug? You have to step across the line. Absolutely. Fantastic. So this is a demonstration of the simple choice. That like it is our choices that build our world and allow ourselves to experience this type of things that we're very much invested in. It's as simple as crossing a line. The reality is that there are many lines that have been drawn in the world, and there are many concerns and fears that prevent us from stepping across those lines. So this work is the foundation of a larger work, a social practice work called ecological décalé. Ecological décalé thinking. Ecological décalé is it's a gathering project. So the project is to invite 10 different diasporic indigenous communities to a particular site on which there is a replica built of St. Peter's Basilica. St. Peter's Basilica is the building that everyone recognizes from the Vatican. This replica is a playground. I did not bring any things here because it's a contentious project and we're doing this live stream thing and I feel kind of self-conscious. But the St. Peter's Basilica is a replica. The idea is that like in the center, there will be this replica, this playground replica, and there will be 10 families of indigenous children, diasporic indigenous children, playing on the replica, doing different things, in order to have that visual to demonstrate that, like, as was said, we are coming, right? We are coming, and our name is Legion. We are coming. We are coming. And around this replica are spaces like for story time, spaces for food, spaces for medicine making, spaces for dance. And the idea is everyone who comes into the space, intergenerational families, right? Everyone who comes into the space has the opportunity to participate in this speculative project, to answer this one question, what obstacles need to be overcome in order for you to join, participate, or contribute to a pan-indigenous solidarity force that lays siege to the Vatican. The whole understanding, before everyone gets it twisted and thinks, oh, siege, that's just so violent. Siege, the etymology of siege is to take a seat outside of a fortress. This is what it means to lay siege, to wait someone out, to give them your attention and have them return that attention, because we need to have a conversation. Getting a little heated, sorry. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I want to show a couple of things about this image that allows folks to imagine differently. What you see, you might imagine this canvas to be cut into 4 quadrants, okay? Each quadrant is like one of the four corners of the cosmos. And the way I separate it is this is the discursive, this is the material, this is the unknowable, or like unknowable, and this is the unsensible. 4 quadrants. Then we come out of the cosmos, in which all beings are required to be engaged with dignity, and we find ourselves in the spiritual realm, which is this big square here. The idea is that like all beings engage from a spiritual capacity, and there's a need to recognize autonomy there. We move from that space into this big triangle, which is the physical. And from there, we understand that all beings' vitality must be respected. And then we see this triangle, which is kind of covered by the last piece, this triangle here, which is the imaginal, meaning that all beings engage with subjectivity, and that subjectivity has to be reconciled against the subjectivities of others. And then the last is the social. All beings are interdependent. So my understanding is like once we hold the concept of dignity, autonomy, vitality, subjectivity, and interdependency, we have to sit. We can take that seat and understand that what we're arguing for or what we are expecting others to pay attention to is our sovereignty. And I've laid out here quite simply what an argument for what that sovereignty is. So like, give me dignity, respect my autonomy, value my vitality, honor my subjectivity, and recognize we're interdependent, and we'll be good, right? Okay, so that's gonna be it for me. And let's get into the conversation.
Interesting. First of all, thank you. And yeah, as you guys are talking, I was thinking about, like, for example, in Patte, your installation, there's like a gathering of materials, and which are all like living beings, and they kind of change over time. And also, like in Çaca's, your imagination of the gathering of people. I'm just curious that like how do you think about this kind of gathering in relation to like space and time? You know, because I think Patte, like your work is mostly in like an exhibition setting, and there is like a certain time frame, but like how do you imagine beyond that time frame of like a exhibition? And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
You go first.
Well, I'll answer that question, and I think that goes to the way that you framed the talk in terms of calling, you know, it multivalent web weavings and otherworld syllabus. You know, it's the exhibitions generally have like an interactive component where viewers are invited to interact with teaching material. I've been a teacher for a long time, and it's wonderful to see students here today and former students, and so I try to extend that teaching into my exhibition. So my most recent exhibition right now is called Salt Marsh Deep Time Study Center, and it's literally a study center. Like the entire exhibition is a study center. It's designed for people to sit down and have reading material and to learn something and then to like take notes and leave notes and drawings as part of the exhibition. And so my hope in relationship to time, I have lots of thoughts on time, so I could talk a lot about it, but in specifically the way that you're framing in time in terms of gatherings and time, my hope is that people will encounter these ideas as part of a larger I don't know, project of the environmental humanities whose ultimate goal is like thriving for all beings on Earth, you know, that people will take a little bit of that away with them and understand more over time, and maybe it'll spark their curiosity and their connection to the biosemiotic world that I'm really interested in.
How does the work extend beyond sites?
Yeah, maybe sites, and how do you think about like having this thing in whether in a specific location or it become like, you know, something in your mind? Yeah.
So for those who don't know, like I come from a particular indigenous tradition wherein we could call out time, you know, in the way that which you call out folks who do things that you don't like, and you're like, oh, I'm calling them out, or you don't call them in. Well, you do that with time, and I think I call out time a lot. So, like in this work in a particular way, like I'm not really thinking about space. Actually, in many regards, like I'm not really thinking about time, is what I meant to say, because when I engage as an artist here in this settler colonial world, people have a sense of like, okay, your show is on for this period of time, and then it's going to have this impact. Oh, you should really continue to like build your capital or your presence so that you can last for a long time in this industry. And I remember that I kind of have rejected that. I really think from a place that I refer to as like an ecological planet place, you know, which is like, this is what I'm experiencing here in this moment, that whatever concept we have around time, like that's not relevant to this where I am, you know, where like I'm feeling what's present for me, and like what's present for me can feel what's here for me. But when I think about the work, you know, like so like for example, a painting, it's just a visual. Like I hope someone gets something from it. I hope someone has something in that moment, in that place. But when I think about the gatherings in particular, I think about what it is to sort of bank planet place, to take all of these different communities who have different relationships with different non-human beings, and have passed those relationships over a period of time across places, the diasporic communities, right, across spaces, and then bringing them into this one place, you know, the gathering, where they can have a conversation, being informed from those many relationships. I think about doing that, like I said, intergenerationally. You know, like I want elders, I want parents, uncles, aunties, like adults, and like kids engage in that conversation, that sort of like soup, because then they will move from that place into other places. And I'm interested to think about the weaving, the webbing of that. Yeah, I mean, like it's not about time. It's just it's about building place.
I'd love to respond to that. I mean, it sounds like you're trying to take a present moment and extend that out.
Yeah.
You know, like so much of our Western time is like the past is enormous, the future is enormous, and this present moment is a tiny pinpoint that is never, like we're almost never in it, because it just turns into the past and then turns into the future. And it sounds like you're wanting to like almost like leave this space where the present, like, you know, extends out.
So many lives, human and non-human, have been lost. So many species are now extinct due to an attachment to this Western sense of time.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, and I think in that way, it's like, I want to expand the now, this present moment, because we can all be held in this moment, you know, and that feels like a worthwhile work with this life of time.
Yeah. Donna Haraway calls that thick time. Or no, the thick now. The thick now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Patte's work is also like, you know, a collapse of time, because you're working in the cemetery, right? It's like it's it's all about like the past, and but your work is kind of like bring them not back, but like bring them with us in a sense, like in the space. Yes. Oh, and what's my question? Yeah, I was also thinking about like our sensibilities, because I think a lot of like your works prioritize like actions or like movements, or prioritize the different ways of engaging with our surrounding. Because I think like as human, we focus so much on seeing and knowing everything, and like this unknowing is also important. And I'm just curious, like in your work, how do you think about sensibilities? And a lot of like in our last lecture, we talked a lot about a form of listening as a kind of like attuning ourselves with the plants, and also paying attention to the plants instead of trying to know them or trying to give them names, give them scientific identity to them. So yeah, like in terms of sensibilities, do you have any thoughts around it?
I have a lot of thoughts. I mean, yeah, time in the cemetery is really complicated, and I think it was the first time, I was brought up in like a with super Western conceptions of time and super Western conceptions of art, and, as I'm learning more about the world, I'm learning that it's way more complicated than what I was taught, but I think I understood that intellectually, and I feel like the cemetery was the first place where I like totally felt that time was really weird, and it had to do with the confrontation with the past, and also the different time frames of plants, like plants being very cyclical and their bodies changing rapidly and wildly throughout a season. And then we also had this feeling that there was something else there, that there was something that was a combination of the grief that people had experienced in the cemetery, and maybe a little bit of the people themselves, that like those DNA remains that are still around, and then the plants and the insects and the birds. And I kind of conceived of this as a spirit, as an entity, and it was very present for me. And I tried to figure out what she looked like by becoming her, by performing as her. And I don't ever show those performances. They were just kind of for me, and they were ridiculous. I mean, they were really, it's kind of like one of those things where you're like kind of, I'm going to go for the most like kind of direct and maybe not intelligent way of like expressing this. And so it's not in my body of work, but it really helped me kind of understand this ghostly presence that is not like a ghost. It's not like a haunting in terms of like, there are dead people in the cemetery as we approach Halloween that we're thinking of. It was like, there was this other thing that was a combination of all of those. And so a specter, something. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's what comes up for me in relationship to the words that you said.
Yeah, interesting. Sure.
Can I just clarify? Can you that you perform the spirit?
Yeah, I dressed up as what I thought the spirit might look like, and I went to the cemetery, and there are videos of it, but
Posting this archive.
yes, exactly.
Just seal it like
someone's gonna like
80
dig
years
those
later.
up, hopefully many years from now, and they'll be like, "Ooh, whoa, that was not good art." But it was helpful for me. Like sometimes you have to do that as an artist. You have to do the private body of work that helps you understand like the larger thing that you're doing. Yeah.
Sensibility. I mean, I'm gonna take a note out of it. I'm gonna jump off from this idea of specters. Like, I am a haunted being, and I feel like I'm haunted, and I feel as if I am much more of a specter in this world than I am recognized and embraced as a fully living being. So my sensibility is dark, you know, and joyful, you know, because like I think there's something really joyful about the expanse of darkness, right? Actually, there's a quote by Fred Moten, who folks may be familiar with as a scholar in New York, but he says something about blackness that like I also really associate with darkness and the way that he understands this. He says that he hopes that blackness has the capacity, but that he hopes that blackness has the ability to end the world. And I think I really sit in that as a foundation for sensibility. I think. Oh, and I brought this text because I wanted to speak to some of the work that I'm doing moving forward. This text is called "These Birds of Temptation: Intercalations number 6." It's just a manual as exhibition as a manual about birds. Right now, what has occupied my senses and my intellect for the last since February is this project called Delisted, and I am an artist who is holding relationship with 15 now extinct bird species, and tomorrow is the day that I start some hardcore work for about 30 days. But having processed that haunting and thought and felt and responded and mourned and grieved, there's got to be a space to apply that sensibility, similar to what you were talking about with the embodiment. There's got to be a space for me to embody and shed. And so I look at my body of work, and I've talked about this a couple of times, but I look at my body of work as like a graveyard. Actually, these are things that after I process these things, then I shed them, and I get to show them off, and hopefully make a little bit of money off of the dead in a way that I feel capital does. That's the way in which I try to approach it. This is the way in which I try to lean into this time, but do it authentically. Anyway,
It's fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love embodying spirits.
Yeah, no.
Dancing
there's
in the
a power to
graveyard.
that.
Yeah.
It gives you access to a lot of realms that we're not really trained to perceive or to construct or to bring into discourse.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, let's make it a conversation.
And I have other questions.
Shelley, is that a question? Is that a good? Oh, bring it.
I think Patte and I have talked about this very briefly, but hello. Hi. And I work with a lot of themes of diaspora identity, movement, and migration. And I read this text about how the migrant or someone who has experienced movement in general has a very different perspective of what linear time means in the Western context, and how you're always thinking of what you knew from before, your life from before, quote unquote before, and then you're always thinking, always about the future, what might happen, how do you...
I'm sorry. That was
I want the answer to that, yes.
That was my Siri.
You're fine. Here's what I found. Siri,
Your
tell me
Siri
about
tried
your-
to answer the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
I would be so interested to hear what they have to say.
Me too.
have to go back. I just deactivated him.
You're fine. But yeah, just that like non-linear way of thinking about how time is experienced through and embodied through people who have experienced movement in whatever capacity. And that made me think of your line, and I don't know if this is a separate thought, but borders and the permeability of borders and imagined borders and physical borders, and who really is here to determine that, and it made me think of how we are all essentially connected, how that invites conversation in a way, and it just, like how do you embody or disembody a border or a limitation or a boundary? Do those exist? I feel like that was a very charged question, so I'll stop talking.
No, it's a great question.
I have like a two sentence like response. I already mentioned to you, I feel like a specter, like just a being without a body. And like what I felt I needed to do was craft a body for myself, which is effectively the further. Like it's quite intensive and complex. There's like points and lines and everything. But yeah, and so like now I'm just demonstrating what it is to move and experience others through this body, right? And leaving that hopefully in the graveyard, like I said, right? So, my response is like, oh, hi, thank you. My response is, we have the technology to build a better body, but not utilizing, electronics necessarily. We have always had the capacity to build, or not build. We've always had the capacity to welcome a new version or a new aspect of ourselves. And this is literally what has to be done when territory can no longer sustain us, and which is what happens under conflict, climate conflict, all these different things. We have to say goodbye to what it is that we've known, the relations that we've had, and we had to figure out what it means to be welcomed into another space, but also to welcome that space into like ourselves. Anyway, that's my response. Thank you.
I mean, that's such a great, I think, perceptive comment, and it leads me to think about what you're working on right now, which I think is, in a way, building a new body. I mean, that's what Lola is, perhaps.
Lola, tell us about Lola. Where's Lola at? Whatever Lola wants, right? Lola, sorry.
It's,
I don't know if I'm gonna answer that.
Totally.
I mean, it might be really pertinent because it is an embodied being that is not you, as a way of processing this movement across borders. And when you were talking about time, like I see what you're describing as like an enormous rupture. It's like a rupture in time. It's like there's a before and after, which makes it really hard to be in that present moment, I think, that we were describing, which is a generative space for artists and just for humans. And so if you're always living with like the before and after, it must do something really funny and strange to time. And maybe this constructing of a new body helps one exist in that space or create room in that, in response to that rupture.
Sylvia's word, body territory, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, that's the idea. Constructing the body as territory, the territory is body.
Yeah, although this rupture is also it's like a loss of body territory, because the body territory is the ancestors.
Totally.
It's where it's like that ground and those trees and environments that have known your extended human family body for years. And those of us who are from the settler colonial European diaspora, we have a really complicated legacy with that, and it's really painful, and as is everyone's when there's been that kind of disruption. So yeah.
Some would say pain.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's a great question.
Were there other questions?
Other questions?
Yes.
I know when you see yourself in there.
Okay, I was curious about your symbol, and it's more of like a process question about, I guess, creating this symbol that you have. I was just wondering, like, how did you end up coming up with this symbol, like the exact lines and kind of like just kind of the symbolic process behind that, and whether you have other symbols, or is this kind of the main thing that you've settled on?
So have I come up with other symbols? I have come up with other symbols. That's the first answer. That one's easy to respond to. I've come up with other symbols. But the process for this was, I like geometry. I mean, as you can see, it's rather geometric. But I wanted to, I was struggling. Like this was during my thesis, or not thesis work. This was during like my being in school in the MFA at SMFA. I was really struggling to. I was grappling. I think that's a better term because, I was really grappling with Western representation. Art is representation. Like for me, that didn't really sit well. Like I make something, like it's not just representative. There's so much invested in it, right? Which is like this canvas has been brought to multiple spaces. This is my teaching canvas. I use this canvas. It's a tool, and maybe one day it will hang somewhere, but like it carries that history of having been like, we can take that off and use that. And this particular design, like, was developed primarily to, what's the word? To extend like the image into something else. Like, so I wanted everything to be, it's foundational. Like I said, it's a piece here. Like I've made patches that are about 2 inches by 2 inches, someone can like put them on their shirt and speak about like their relationship to this space or their relationship to this work. But it is also very much a design, an outline for a city. And so like I began to think about borders, and I began to think about what does it look like to cross these things, and what are points of entrance into community. And I came up with 3 points of entrance. And so there's like some philosophical thoughts around 3 points of 3 ways to enter into community. And then I thought about like, what does it mean to be held? Like what's the like what are our real foundations? Thinking about what I shared with you before about like what's here at the top and what's here at the bottom. I thought like this is what culture is here. Like I wanted to make a space for culture. And so I made these 3 points of like the social, the physical, and the imaginal. Like these are cultural things. Like this is, this middle square being the spiritual, but then that square or quadrant being the discursive, this being the material. That's culture. But what do we have in common? Because like we have different cultural experiences, different cultural expressions. But what do we have in common? We have the unsensible and the unknowable. Mm-hmm. No matter where we go, we always have that in common. Right. And so like I said, I was really grappling with how to take these big things and present it in a way that would I don't know what the word is, be received. Yeah, I was like, you know, be
Or
received.
maybe how to make it legible.
Yeah, thank you. Legibility. Legibility. Like how to take a literacy and make it a legibility. That's true. That's very true. How to take a literacy and make it a legibility. And I thought, you know what? Simple shapes. And then this gives me the opportunity to just play with color as much as I want, right? And to demonstrate different things with color. Again, simple shapes. This actually reminds me of James Blake and like Daniel Caesar, or like, you know, these contemporary artists who, musicians who use the voice in addition to like their musicality. But like the thing is, it's just their voice. They're just using their voice. It's just a simple shape. It's just a simple form that they're using. And I thought that was best when it came to the complexity of what I was trying to present. Oh, the last thing I'll say about it is that I also wanted something that referenced a star, right? So I call this the further star. That's what the shape is. It's the further star.
But with tea delivery.
I know.
And then take it back.
And then take it back.
Questions?
You briefly talked about joy. And I'd love to know for both of you what gives you joy within your practice. Or what are some forms of joy that emerge from the practice?
I mean, so many aspects. I mean, it's so funny that we've like stopped on the hell panel, which was actually really fun to
Yeah,
paint.
I was just saying that looks great.
Money!
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, and then a monument with a horse. You know, I mean, this is just a delightful. It's so fun to find these research vehicles for like my biggest imagination to take flight. You know, it's like we can, as artists, we have these big imaginations, and this has sort of created a framework where I can go as big as I want. And so it's like spending time with the land is incredibly pleasurable. Making the paintings and objects is also just it's just deeply deep. And talking to people about it is deep. I don't know. It's all just suffused with joy. I just wish I had more time, more energy, you know, to kind of like be deeply engaged in it.
Joy, where's joy in the work, right?
Where does joy emerge? And you
What?
Joy!
you also mentioned, I can't remember the context exactly, your relationship with joy. Perhaps
I think being a specter.
Yeah.
in being center as well. Yeah.
So, but just repeat the question again.
What is the relationship between the work, your practice, and joy?
Okay, what is the relationship between the work, my practice, and joy? I think that I've never read Pleasure Politics. What is the book? Adrienne Marie Brown's bit. Like, I've never read that book, but like I think maybe I should at some point, because like I fundamentally believe that what opens the world up, or what opens us up and opens the world up to us and allows us to experience like the enrichedness and the enlivenment of things is joy. You know, like I think it's the most generous, or it is the key to generosity. It's the key to kindness and all the things that come out of it. You know, like for me, I think joy is above love, right? And so for me, knowing that, like when it comes to cacao de Calais, which means sunset destruction, when it comes to that work of gathering people in a space, people who have recognizable histories of dispossession and pain and agony, and inviting them to come and practice and literally see their children engage in a joyful activity, like, and then that radiates out from that center space, and like, you know, you give like the older folks the opportunity to just like talk and shoot the shit, you know, all these things, like, all, again, that's the banking that I want. I want there to be like that. What happens when you have so much? What happens when you have folks engage in what I refer to as like a counter-terror imaginary, which is joy? What does it mean to like push aside those terrors, those horrors for a moment and imagine in real time with joy? Like, I think that that's how it's tied to me. So like I'm looking for that. Like, I want more of that, and I want to share more of that.
Yeah, please.
I'm really interested in the. It's the only one that you can see. It was just in the corner. I'll be quick, I promise. I'm really interested in the relationship between your mapping, Patte, and your mapping as well. Or I don't know if it's necessarily mapping, but like blueprinting, if you would call it. And the difference between mapping space and then mapping place. I don't know if we can talk a little bit about that.
You should go first, because like you've got the maps here. Cosmological maps here.
They are cosmological.
Yes.
Well, I think that, I mean, I would say that, like, if you're asking, like, how I see our practices in relationship to one another, you know, I feel like I'm trying to map something that exists, like to describe something that exists in a real specific place, like a real unique place. And then I feel like you're creating a blueprint for something that doesn't exist yet, but trying to manifest it by imagining it.
Yeah, I like, is this answering the question though, right?
Yes.
Is this what you're looking for? Okay. So the first thing that I see is cosmology. Patte has presented like real articulations of like, this is a cosmological thing. And like the work that I've been doing here feels for me primarily about building what I refer to as a rescue cosmology. So like in this regard, it is similar to what Patte is saying, that like perhaps the post-Vatican world doesn't exist outside of my painting and the tape installations that I make. But I kid you not, it's existed at least 36 times, because that's about how many like installations I've made. And I've invited people there. And for a period of time, it was real. And what I gather from that space like allows me to develop this, like the practice of building this rescue cosmology, which is like, you know, kind of like a play on rescue archaeology. I don't know. So like when corporations want to build over a graveyard, a site of great historic value, some archaeologists try to get in really quickly and say, hey, we need to do like a quick rescue archaeology project where we pull these things that are of value to like heritage and culture and humanity and life and whatever we want to make the argument for. I'm trying to do a similar thing with cosmology. I think that we have a lot of cosmological understandings, like a Christian personhood, that's really messing things up. And it's like, well, we got to get in before it just is sealed.
Yeah, and I totally feel like hell, like that centralized individual is like the Christian person that you're describing. Like that intersection was really delightful to discover right here, like sitting on his like centralized pile of feces and nobody else can get in, you know, and everybody is dead and white, you know.
Go back.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's like this is a really big tapestry, and there's like just a little tiny kind of fat bulbous figure that everything is emanating out of. I mean, not to get too political about it, but Donald Trump's ancestors are buried in the cemetery, and that was definitely on my mind when I was making this. And as you know, maybe a certain worldview expressed by various people, kind of creating this. And so, and that's, and then I see what you're doing is creating these, these fleeting moments, but these expanding moments of time.
I want there to be a
which-
further diaspora.
Yeah, where it like breaks out, like it's like it's like creating a crack in the seamless facade that has been woven around us that like dictates how we understand the world. The more we can do that, the more like other possibilities, other potentialities begin to arise.
Fissures for fugitivity.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's so interesting. Like my kind of things are really full, like they're just full of things, they're happening right now. And yours is like there's space to move into it. There's space that we can move into and occupy. I like that a lot.
I love that. I want to use that. I gotta like prepare a course, and I want to use that because I'm glad we're recording this. So I'm like, I want that knowledge. The Patte's like, there's Christian personhood right there. That's amazing.
Sitting on a giant toilet.
Yeah.
Yay.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We don't have any question online, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's just like.
Cool.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you.